this video, I'm going to be comparing the Tarzan movies to the Insomnia movies, because in part one of this series, I compared Tarzan to King Kong. I compared Insomnia to King Kong. I compared Tarzan to Robin Hood. Tarzan and Insomnia are the two franchises that won, so now I'm going to compare them. I did not initially think of Insomnia as a franchise. I knew that Christopher Nolan put out a movie in the early 2000s, 2002 specifically, called Insomnia, but what I did not know until I looked it up is that actually Christopher Nolan's version of Insomnia is a remake of a 1997 actually, Norwegian film called Insomnia. Now, when you look at highest score for each franchise, with Tarzan, you got this movie Tarzan the Ape Man and then Tarzan and His Mate. Both of them have a 100%. In the case of Insomnia, the 1997 Norwegian film has a 95%. Tarzan wins here. But then when you look at lowest score, however, Christopher Nolan's Insomnia has a 92%. When you look at the lowest score for Tarzan, you have this movie called Tarzan and the Lost City with only a 6%. And then when you look at average score with Insomnia, very high average, 93.5. In the case of Tarzan, you got an average of 45.4. Then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, well, with Insomnia, you have a gap of only 3%, whereas you have a gap of 94% with Tarzan. So not even close there. When we look at my personal opinion, I haven't actually seen either Insomnia movie. I haven't watched every Tarzan movie, but I've seen a few of them. I've watched the 1999 Disney version of Tarzan, and then the movie Legend of Tarzan from 2016. I have not seen any of the other films, but because Tarzan is an iconic character and I've seen at least a few of these movies, I personally have to go with Tarzan. But I think that Christopher Nolan is a fantastic director. I think he's one of the best directors working in Hollywood now. One big reason why is that if you look at his filmography, every single movie he's put out is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. He has yet to have a dud. None of his movies have been negatively reviewed. I mean, some of them are regarded a bit less favorably than others. I mean, a lot of people would say, for example, that The Dark Knight Rises is the weakest film in the Dark Knight trilogy. And I'd agree with that. There's great moments in it, but you can also see that because Christopher Nolan had really ambitious goals, there were moments that he wanted to be in the movie, he unfortunately had to cheat in order to make that happen, and thus there's just more plot holes, lapses in logic, things that feel contrived or convenient, characters making blatantly stupid decisions. So the script's not as tight as before, but Dark Knight Rises is still a good movie. And then a lot of people would agree that Tenet is just one of the more flawed Christopher Nolan movies. But it's not a bad movie. It's still very interesting. I respect the fact that Christopher Nolan got really ambitious with Tenet. I just think that he didn't pull it off as well when it comes to the story and storytelling. Because with Tenet, you have a movie that is just unnecessarily confusing because of the storytelling, because we're just dropped right in the middle of the action without any kind of explanation, and then it takes quite a good amount of time for things to actually be explained to the audience. It also doesn't help that our main character is just such a blank slate that he feels so much at arm's length away from the audience, so that makes it harder to connect with what's going on. But still, Tenet is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, still a movie that 3/4 of critics do recommend, and yeah, I would say Insomnia is one of the Nolan movies that people don't tend to talk about as much. It's kind of been forgotten, but it's still got good reviews. And when you look at Nolan's first movie, Following, it's different because it has a really small budget. It was basically the peak of what Nolan was able to do just with his friends, without Hollywood support, without a bunch of money, without a bunch of resources. So it does play more like a demo tape where you can see Christopher Nolan's skills. You can see that this is a guy who's going to end up being something big. but the limitations that inherently are there with the budget do show themselves with following. So a lot of people would say it's not Nolan's strongest movie, but still, he has yet to actually have any dud. That's pretty impressive, I would say. So in this case, I would personally choose the Tarzan franchise, but Insomnia is going to win, however. That'll wrap things up for this video.